Welcome to Your Cyber Path, the podcast that helps you get your dream cybersecurity job by sharing the secrets of experienced hiring managers and top cybersecurity professionals with you. Now, on to the show.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Your Cyber Path. In today's episode, we're going to talk about whether or not you can demonstrate too much passion for cybersecurity when you're in an interview. And so today I'm going to talk with Kip Boyle, who's my co-host, and I'm Jason Dion, and we're going to talk all about passion. Now, passion is a great thing for you to have, especially for your future career, but you also don't want to take it too far. Sometimes there's things you can do that kind of step over the line, and as hiring managers, it really sets us off. So today, we're going to talk about the 6 things that you need to avoid doing that can actually turn off recruiters and hiring managers when you're in an interview. Now, before we do that, though, I just want to do a special shout out to Tom Smith, who was kind enough to leave a review for the show on iTunes for us. He wrote that he has learned many things and many details about cybersecurity careers by listening to the show. He has so much actionable insights that he's gathered, and he really thanks us for the show. And we thank you, Tom, for listening. And if you want to have your name called out on the show, feel free to leave us a review at iTunes as well. All right, so today, like I said, we're going to jump right in and we're going to talk about the top 6 things that you don't want to do in an interview that can really set people off. Kip, what are your feelings on this before we even get started?
Right. So, there's a balancing act here. Okay. There's something we talk about all the time, which is, hey, you have to show some passion, right? Because a lot of people out there are feeling nervous or, they have like imposter syndrome going on or whatever, and they're not showing enough enthusiasm and enough eagerness, right? And so we're trying to coach those people. But then there's a small number of people who unfortunately just let that run crazy and wild. And it doesn't happen too much, but it happens enough that I felt like we needed to say something about this. And these 6 things, I haven't seen all 6 of these things, but I've seen some of them. And the other ones on the list are stories that other hiring managers have told me. So when you hear these 6 things and you might think, oh my gosh, who would ever do that? That sounds so out of bounds and crazy, but I'm telling you, this stuff happens and you gotta not do it.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And the thing is, there's passion and there's desperation. And sometimes you cross the line when you are trying to appear passionate that you become off as a little bit too desperate sometimes. And to be honest, nobody wants a desperate person. And so if you smell of desperation, it's not going to go well for you in that interview. So let's go ahead and kick this off with our 6 things. And we're going to start talking about these things that start turning recruiters and hiring managers off. Because again, you don't want them to start questioning your honesty, your trustworthiness, or your good judgment. So let's start with the first one. What's your first one, Kip?
All right. So the first thing you do not want to do in the interview or even in a cover letter or, whatever, anything that, don't do it so that I can see it, but you don't want to tell me about all of the different websites and organizations that you hacked uninvited because you were performing some kind of a public service, right? And so you think this is going to impress me because you've been going around basically telling people that their fly's undone, right? And they're going to react the way they react. But look, don't show up, for example, with a vulnerability scan of my website to the interview, or don't show me a vulnerability scan of my competitor's website either. So that's what you should, if you're at all, feeling motivated to do this as a way of impressing me or, demonstrating that you've got great skills, please don't do that. But I love where this idea comes from, right? Is that you've got skills, you want to demonstrate those to me. I think that's wonderful. Let me tell you what I would rather have you do is contribute to a bug bounty program, one where your talents are going to be put to good use and you're going to get public acknowledgement, right? For that. And then show me that. That's what I want to see instead. So there's my first one.
Yeah, I totally agree. I get emails probably about once a month, twice a month from somebody who goes, hey, I looked at your website, I saw this vulnerability, and do you offer a bug bounty program, or are you looking to hire somebody to fix your problems? Like, well, you're going and scanning my website and you're not supposed to be. Like, that's illegal in most countries. So you need to ask permission before you start scanning. Always remember that. Here in the United States, scanning somebody's websites for vulnerability is classified as criminal hacking if you're doing it without permission. The difference between a hacker and a pen tester is really just that. It's permission. And so if you don't have permission, you shouldn't be doing it. That said, if that company has a public bug bounty program, definitely go and scan their website. See if you can find something, and then tell me about that in the interview. Because if my company has a public bug bounty program, I am now giving you permission to do that. And now it's not something that's off limits. Now it is something that is showing passion. And so again, this really is contextual, and you have to make that distinction in your head when you start thinking about different companies.
Right.
All right,
And if, okay,
sorry,
hold on, Jason, one more thing. So I just want to be super clear about this. If you sign up for a bug bounty program, read the terms of service, right? Like what you have to know what's inbounds and what's out of bounds, because companies will set up boundaries and they'll tell you it's okay to hack over here. It's not okay to hack over there. And don't make the mistake of thinking, oh, they've got a bug bounty program, so it's free game. I can go for anything and do anything. That's not the way it works. So I know that we hate reading the owner's manuals when we buy stuff, right? And we hate reading the contracts that we sign, but you've really got to be careful here. All right, that's my last comment.
Definitely, and that just goes right back to permission. What are the rules of engagement, right? All right, the second one we're going to talk about here, Kip, is telling me what you think I want to hear. Now, this is one that really drives me crazy, and I hear it all the time in interviews, right? Really, when it comes down to it, I don't want you to make stuff up if you don't know the answer during the interview. Right? If I ask you a question that's really technical and in depth, and maybe you're not really smart on that particular tool or that particular thing, don't start BSing me and just filling me full of hot wind, right? Instead, you should actually do something else. And what should they do, Kip? If I asked you a question you don't know the answer during the interview, what would you do?
Okay, so a candidate with high integrity and high confidence is going to say to me point blank, I don't know that. And then they're going to follow it up with this. Would it be okay if I figure it out after we finish the interview and then I follow up with you? Oh my gosh. When a candidate does that, I'm super impressed. It shows integrity and it shows confidence. And I need both of those attributes, by the basketful.
Yeah, I actually was just hiring for a position in my company for a new chief technical officer. It's a new position we created as we're growing. We decided we needed somebody who was really focused on the technical side, because up to this point, I was doing the CEO job, I was doing the COO job, I was doing the CTO job, all combined into one.
I've noticed.
Last year, I hired a COO, and she's been doing great. And I said, you know what? It's time for me to offload this technical side too. Can I do it? Sure. Am I smart at it? Yeah. But I can't do that and be an instructor and be the CEO and do everything else that I do. So I decided I was going to hire somebody. And during the interviews, I found somebody who I really liked. And I asked them a question. And when I asked the question, they did this exact thing, right? They didn't fill me full of BS. I asked a question about AWS because that's what our infrastructure is built on. And he told me flat out, he goes, my experience in the past has been on Azure. So I don't know the exact answer of how I would do that in AWS. But I know I can figure it out for you. And if you give me 24 hours, I'll come back with you with an answer to that particular question. Perfectly fine. Because I'll tell you, as a CTO, I don't need an answer within 30 seconds if I ask you something, but I do need it this week. And so he went off, he found the answer. He said, yeah, in Azure, we do it this way. In AWS, it's the equivalent of this thing. And that was it. And now he is hired on the team. He actually started this Monday or last Monday, and he's doing a great job for us. But again, he's not an AWS expert, but he's learning and he's bringing it up to speed because he already had equivalent experience that he was able to use. And again, not trying to blow smoke and say, oh yeah, it's this, and this, because that might have worked and he probably would have gotten that past my COO because she's not technical, but he wasn't getting it past me because I know AWS, right? And so that's a difference there.
Yeah. I also want to tack on one other thought here, which is not only are you showing integrity and confidence, but you're actually displaying another really key skill, which is you'll never know everything. You'll never be able to solve every problem that comes at you. And I don't want you BSing your way through really important problems that show up unexpectedly. I want you to pause. I want you to do the research. I want you to reach out for help, and I want you to figure it out. And, again, that's just like a key skill that we need to have on my team.
Yeah, the next one is one that just drives me nuts, but I'm going to let you cover it, Kip. What's number 3?
Yeah, number 3 is telling me that you've got either certifications or experience that you really don't have, or telling me that you've attended certain trainings that you haven't actually gone to. And I know why a lot of people do this. They're nervous. Again, they want to impress, they want the job. And so they figure, well, I'll just fudge this, right? Because it's just a short interview. There's no way that this stuff can be sorted out in the interview. And you're right. In the interview, I probably am not going to know this, even though if I suspect that you're not telling me the truth, I could start asking you some pointed questions and maybe figure out that you don't know it. But listen, the bottom line here is don't lie. That creates an integrity problem, which we've mentioned is completely unacceptable. If I can't trust you, you're gone off my team. And it doesn't matter if it's a small I can't trust you or a big I can't trust you. So don't start off on this, don't start off this way with lies or even exaggerating the truth. That may be okay in marketing, but it's not okay in the information security and cybersecurity world, because you know what's going to happen is you're going to tell me this, and then I'm going to go do the background check, right? So I found a person that I want to hire for my team right now, and I am really, really anxious to pull the trigger, but I'm doing a background check on this person because I don't know who they are. I've never met them before. There's nobody that I know who knows them. And so to protect my company and to protect my customers, I'm running a background check. Well, guess what? I'm going to do that, whether it's a formal background check or whether I'm going to just talk to your prior supervisor, right? And I'm going to find out if you've done these things and if you've gone to these trainings, or if you have these certifications. It's very, very easy for me to discover. So you may think that that you're going to get away with something, but you're not. So Jason, what would you rather see a candidate do when they feel like they're missing a certain certification or a certain experience?
Yeah, I think this is really an easy one, right? Don't lie to me. Be honest. List the certifications and experience that you have that are relevant to that position. This is one that I talk about all the time because I look at my own resume and I've got 30-something certifications. Now, do I think you need 30-something certifications? Absolutely not. I think you need 3 to 5 key certifications. Now, if you have 10, 20, 30 certifications, that's fine. But what I would do is only list the ones that are relevant to the position you're going for. If you're trying to go and become a cybersecurity analyst, don't tell me about the fact that you have an A+ certification. I really couldn't care less. I care that you have Security Plus, CYSA Plus, maybe Pen Test Plus or CEH or CISSP or something like that, something in that security realm.
It'll be in the job description.
Relevant. Exactly. And it's going to be based on the job description, and you're going to make sure that it's matching those keywords. Now, this is where a lot of people start lying about things on their resume, though, because they're trying to keyword stuff. Mm-hmm. I told the story before. I know I've told you, Kip, but I'll share it with the audience here. I was hiring for a government position about 10 years ago. And for this GS-13 position, they were going to be responsible to be the assistant of director of operations for a large IT network. It was crossing about 4 countries, 10, 15,000 endpoints, big network, multiple domains, multiple classifications. And one of the requirements said must have CISSP or equivalent. So when I got all the resumes from HR, they did their basic filtering and they got it to me, who was the hiring manager. And by the time they had 1,000 applicants, they got it to me, I got 83 job resumes. Out of those 83, how many had the word CISSP on it? All 83. How many had a CISSP? 3 people. So yep. Who do you think I interviewed, right? It's really quick for me as a hiring manager to figure out whether or not you're telling the truth or not. And most of the people did this as a way of keyword stuffing. They put in things like attended a CISSP training, planning to take my CISSP in 6 months, whatever it was, something like that, to try to get that keyword of CISSP. And it got through HR, but it didn't get through me because I know the difference, right? And most hiring managers know the difference. Mm-hmm. And one of the big things that just drove me crazy, and I wouldn't even have put this on my resume, was I had people who wrote down attended a CISSP boot camp, 2 years ago was the date on it. And I'm thinking to myself, if you attended the training 2 years ago, but you're not certified yet, either A, you're lazy and you don't want to go take the test, or B, you've taken the test multiple times in the last 2 years and you failed.
Right.
Either way, you're not meeting my job requirement, because my requirement was you had to have a CISSP because the government has a rule that says you must be an IAM level 3, which means you have to have this certification to meet those requirements. And so for me, it was a non-starter. You weren't even getting an interview. So you wasted your time, you wasted my time, and you wasted HR's basic filtering time. But that's the kind of thing that, to me, it's a lie or embellishing the truth, because you're just trying to keyword stuff. So please don't do that.
Yeah, and you've also ruined your reputation with me, because if your resume comes back around sometime in the future, I'm gonna, and if I remember, that I tossed you out of consideration because of that game that you played, well, you've shut a door with me, possibly forever. So don't do it.
Yeah, and in my case, 80 resumes, I don't remember those 80 people's names. There's no way I would. Really, it made my searching process pretty quick, because I was thinking I was going to have 80 people to consider and have to pick the top 5 to interview. It made my job easy. There was only 3 guys to interview.
Jason, sometimes people get further along than that, right? And they're getting along because they've told this lie, and at some point that could get discovered, and the further you get through the funnel, the more likely it is I am going to remember your name. So, but there's no way for you to know. So just don't play that game.
Yep.
Just don't play it.
What is the number 4 thing that just drives you crazy, Kip?
Okay, so I've seen this over and over and over again, and it happens a lot actually after people come on board, or if I join an organization, and I can just see it, right? There's people who during daylight hours, right, during working hours, they pretend to be very conservative about hacking and and breaking into systems and so forth, but then you encounter them outside of work hours, or you find their social media feeds, and you realize that this person is showing up 2 completely different ways, right? They're saying what they think they want me to hear about the legality and the ethics of breaking into systems, but their reality is way different, and they're way more permissive about the ideas of, that they can go wherever they want to go. And I think the reason why they believe they can get away with this is because on the scene they're using a handle, right? And so they figure, oh, well, I'm anonymous. Well, no, you're pseudonymous, which means you're kind of sort of anonymous, but guess what? It's not that difficult to figure out your handle. So if you think that, that you can get away with this, and it's another form of lying. So, you're lying to me and you're pretending that, oh yes, I'm on the straight and narrow, and I'm a law abiding, and I would never, think to even do something that was, skirting the law. But then I find out your handle, because I do that background check. How do you think I'm going to feel? Jason, how would you feel?
Oh, I would feel betrayed, right? Because I feel like you lied to me. And again, that just goes right to the trustworthiness. Now, I may not even care about the fact that you have these ethical questionabilities depending on the position I'm hiring for and those type of things, right? And the organization I'm in, and whether or not we have to have a clearance or not, and all those kind of things. But the fact that you lied to me, that really is a thing that I feel like you're putting on this false front. And this goes with anything, right? If you have to hide who you really are to get the job, either A, you shouldn't be in that job anyway, or B, you probably don't want to be in that job, because if you're somebody who is, I don't know, a far right person, are you going to get a job with a far left organization? No, you would just hate it every day, right? Or vice versa, the same thing, right? If you are a antisocial anarchist, you don't want to go work for the NSA, who's part of Big Brother, right? These are the things you have to make sure your conscience is clear. And so whatever that conscience is, I'm not going to tell you ethically what's right and what's wrong, but you need to know who you are and be in an organization that appreciates you for who you are.
Yeah, eventually it's going to slip, right? Eventually, no matter how good you are at pretending that you're somebody different on the job, sooner or later, people are going to find out. And that's when they're going to start feeling betrayed. Some people are going to feel really betrayed. Some people are just going to be like, whatever, I knew it, or what have you. But this is about getting a job, right? This podcast is about getting a job. It's about thinking like a hiring manager. And so boy, don't do this. This is a bad idea. This is a really bad idea. And listen, if you disclose who you really are and you don't get the job, that's not a fail, okay? That is not a fail. That is called fit. That means checking for fit to make sure not only, as a hiring manager, I'm checking for fit constantly. And I'm expecting you to do that too.
Yeah, exactly. You want to make sure you're a good fit and that they're a good fit and that you're going to be happy in that organization, right?
Yeah.
Because I can tell you there's some organizations I would go crazy if I had to go work at, even though they might pay me a lot of money to go do it, because I'm just not a good fit for them and they're not a good fit for me. So, keep that in mind.
Ready for number 5?
Yeah, number 5. What do you got, Kip?
Yep. So look, don't pretend that you have never worked on, or maybe even led a project that didn't live up to expectations. Okay. So it's inevitable when I talk to you in the interviewing process, I'm going to want to know about your failures. All right. Everybody fails. It's part of life. It's okay. I know some people think that failure is the worst possible thing in the world. And there's hiring managers out there that actually believe that as well. And they're not interested in hearing about failure. And if you tell them about failure, they're going to be like, oh, what a loser. I'm not going to hire them. But you can't know that when you come into the interview. So you just have to be okay with the fact that you have failed. Look, failure is the best possible instructor. You will learn more from failure than from any success or any 10 successes. Everyone fails sooner or later, no matter how hard they try to avoid it. So don't pretend that you've never failed. And I can't tell you how many times I've said to somebody, please tell me about a time that that you worked on a project that failed, or that you made a big mistake. What happened? Tell me about it. And they're like, well, I've never really made a big mistake before. I made little mistakes, but nobody cared, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, oh my God, what a poser.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at these stats, right? I teach project management certifications, and one of the stats we find as we look at the best practices across the project management industry is that 80% of projects fail to deliver on time or on budget.
80%.
So that means 80% are failing. That's 4 out of 5, which means out of every 5 candidates, 4 of them should be able to tell me what they did wrong that made something fail, or what project they were involved with that made it fail. And so I think it's really important that you're honest with yourself and you think about this before you go into an interview, because inevitably I hear this question asked all the time: what project did you have that failed? What rollout did you have that failed? What installation did you have that failed? What configurations? Have that in your mind where you already have a canned response. And just like Kip said, you need to focus on the key point of this. It's not the failure, it's what you learned from that experience. I have failed a lot, both before my company and during my company, where we have put things out, we've decided to go down a certain path, I've rolled out a project, we've done things, and we realize, oops, we screwed that up. And so we learn from those experiences so we don't do the same mistake next time. And you need to do the same thing. So you need to be able to coach that in the, here's what I did, here's what went wrong, here's how we never had that problem again. Because I'll tell you, if you've never failed, as a hiring manager, that scares me, because it means you're due and you're going to fail in my organization. If you've already failed before, you've learned from those mistakes on somebody else's dime, and hopefully you're not going to make those same mistakes again.
Yeah. And I expect people on my team to learn all the time, right? You cannot be in this career field without learning new stuff every single day. There's just too much changing, right? Like I've got a customer right now that's saying, hey, Kip, we're thinking about getting into non-fungible tokens, but we don't really know enough about it. So can you help us get smart on it? Oh my gosh, I really wasn't interested in NFTs, but because my customer wanted to know, guess what? NFTs are now my new favorite thing to learn about, right? And I turned on a dime, because that was just part of how I serve my customers. And if you work for me, then you're going to be serving me, you're going to be serving your teammates, you're going to be serving the organization, you're going to be serving customers. And if that's what they say is important, you need to be prepared to learn something. And guess what? You're probably going to fail, right? You're going to, every now and then, your judgment, you're just not going to have any, because you get judgment by making mistakes. So anyway, you've got to be willing to tell me that you know how to learn. And one final thing here, right, is like, what did you learn from the experience? I got to know that you can learn from your mistakes. All right, that's number 5. Ready for number 6?
I'm ready for number 6.
Okay, we've almost brought this episode home here. Okay, so number 6, our industry is rife with this attitude, and it is so self-defeating. And we are shooting ourselves in the foot every single time we say or do anything that has to do with number 6, and that's this: describing information security or cybersecurity as an absolute must-have, must-do, at all costs function for a company, which is to say, like, hey, if we don't secure everything, then, well, those leaders are a bunch of idiots. Contempt. And then, by the way, a corollary to this is making it sound like cybersecurity is all technical, that there's no people stuff involved here, right? It's all about dialing the knobs, getting the bits exactly correct, and anybody who gets in the way is an idiot. I hate that attitude. It's so self-defeating. Jason, you've seen that before, haven't you?
Yeah, and I think this is interesting, because when you just made that statement, you made the statement of describing cybersecurity as an absolute must-have, must-do at all costs business function in an organization, right? And you talked about it being a business thing. Well, my experience for the last 20 years was not in a for-profit business environment. I worked in the government sector, right? We're not in the business to make money. That's not our goal.
Right.
And so for us, it was a completely different mindset. And I had to struggle a lot of times with people where they tried to bring in this, we must do this at all cost mentality inside of this profit-making machine called the government. And one of the things is that, when we would bring up a concept like, you need to make sure you have a good ROI on this investment, they're like, well, we don't make any money, so it's not an ROI. And I'm like, well, no, that's not true. There is a business case to be made inside of this, right? Because let's say I have a budget of, I don't know, $1 billion a year, right? Which some of the places in the government spend $1 billion a year on cybersecurity. What are you getting back for that $1 billion? And if it's not something worthwhile, then you probably shouldn't be spending the money on it. And so we had to go through and start making the business case inside of the government of why we needed this new server, this new tool set, these new people, whatever those things were, and say, this is the return on value we're going to get. We're going to be this much more secure. We're going to have this many less hacks. And it wasn't just about profit in that case, but really it does come into matter whether you're in a nonprofit organization, whether you're in the government, whether you're in a business, it does come down to a return on investment. And so you have to describe cybersecurity as a business issue. And I know you spend a lot of your day, especially using the NIST cybersecurity framework, to explain this to your customers of how cybersecurity is a business issue.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So like a big part of our work is helping people understand that there is business value in cybersecurity spend, right? Because there's a lot of confusion about this. A lot of people are like, well, I just want to do like a straight ROI calculation to prove that I'm going to get, X% of internal return on, on this money that we're going to spend on a password manager or whatever. And I have to say, like, no, first of all, you're never going to be able to pencil this in a traditional business case way. So there's other ways to do it though, right? And so I do spend a lot of my time explaining about our business value framework and all the different dimensions. We've got a 4-dimension model. I'm not going to unpack it here, but yeah, I spend a lot of time explaining to people what is the value of cybersecurity. And I can tell you that when I was on F-22, right, I was at the system program office for F-22, and I remember being told all these crazy stories about people who spent money on security like they were, pardon the pun here, Jason, drunken sailors.
I really don't like that term because I hear people talk about Congress spending like drunken sailors. And the problem is drunken sailors stop drinking when they run out of money. Congress and the government, on the other hand, they don't. They just keep printing more and buying more. So, drunken sailors don't drink that much. I'm sorry.
That's a great point.
Anyway, you go on.
No. It's thank you. That's excellent. So, but look, if you're in the government, it's taxpayer money. Okay. Don't spend my taxpayer money, foolishly and with no justification. And if you're in a for-profit organization, this is going to get you bounced, and you'll be perceived as completely incredible if you have this attitude of we have to do security at all costs, and that damn the torpedoes, full speed ahead. Another naval saying there, I guess. But look. In business, in the private sector, there are huge risks that organizations are facing, right? Like product market fit, especially in a small company, right? Am I selling something that people want, and can I sell it for a price that will create enough profit that we can keep going, that we can meet payroll, and we can pay our bills? And there's no way that a senior decision maker who's worried about product market fit is going to have a good reaction to you coming around saying, oh my God, we need a security information and event monitor, and I don't care how much it costs, $100,000, whatever. Like, we can't live without it. Like, everything, the sky's falling if we don't have this thing. Or another cardinal sin, in my view, is saying, oh, we have to, we have to deploy 2-factor authentication, and we need to train everybody on PGP because we need to encrypt our email. What? You expect customer service agents to figure out how to use PGP and still get their job done? You are on another planet. So there you go. Be careful.
Yeah, exactly, right. And one of the things I think that has really made me successful in my career, even in the government sector, is I could speak the language of the executives, and I could sell them what I needed to do in terms that they could understand. And on the business side, it's the same thing, right? You need to take the time to learn the language of the C-suite. And when we talk about the C-suite, we're talking about the CEOs, the COOs, the CTOs, because they are really focused on what is that budget? What is it going to cost me? What's my return? What am I saving? And all those type of things, right? It's very rare that you're going to find an executive or senior officer, if you're in the government side or the military, who is going to bother learning cyber speak. And so you need to be able to translate things from your technical mind into languages that they understand. And this is one of the things that I see that some people who are really successful and a lot of the really good IT and cybersecurity master's degree programs are actually very similar to a lot of the MBA programs. And the reason is, at that level, you need to start learning how to speak executive and be able to run the numbers and run the accounting and the actuarials and the return on investments and the future cost of the money you're spending today and what it would have been worth in 5 years if we invested it in something else. And because if I'm spending $100,000 on that new doohickey that keeps selling me, well, that's $100,000 that I can't put into hiring another employee who can be a salesman that might generate $500,000 a year in sales. And so it is an either or. money is finite and we have to figure out what we're going to do. So when it comes down to it, during the interview, you really need to make sure that you're thinking about these things and show that you can communicate at this higher level if you want to have a long-term employment at that company.
Right. Now, if you're being hired to just, twist some knobs and pull some levers, this is probably not going to be as big of a deal. But I'll tell you, the warning here is that if you start talking about this as a must-have, must-do at all costs function, even though that's not really what I'm hiring you for, I'm still going to bounce you. Okay, because boy, it's really hard to reprogram people on this point. So just be careful about what you say. Now, look. Those are the 6 things we wanted to share with you. And as we wrap up the episode, I want to tell you one more thing that's really, really important. So if you are violating any of these 6, and God help you if it's more than one of them, okay, I have a trump card that I can use in order to make this point to you, without being rude. And it's this question, okay? So if I think you're like not telling me the whole truth, if I think you're lying, I might ask you, hey, would you please describe a time when you either accidentally or intentionally violated a security policy? When I ask that question to people who I think are lying to me, you should see the looks on their faces. They go white and they're freaked out, because that's usually when they realize that they've already crossed the line in the interview. What's even worse is actually when I ask that question and the person doesn't even flinch. And that tells me that they are totally clueless, right? They don't even realize that they've been over the line with me. And so it's like, okay, I think this interview is over.
Yeah, if you go and do a government security clearance, one of the questions they love to ask you is, have you ever destroyed government equipment or government IT? And I've had to say yes to that every single time. And the interviewer looks at me like, what? And the little spikes on the dial starts going off. And it's like, well, yeah, I have, because that was part of my job, was disposal of government property. And one of the ways we did that was we took out the hard drives, we put drill bits through them, we incinerated things, we destroyed that stuff. And to be honest, in the polygraph, I had to say, yes, I have intentionally destroyed government equipment. And so, there is times that you will intentionally violate a security policy, because the security policy says, don't destroy this stuff, right? Or don't take it home. And sometimes you get home and you're like, oh, I have this secret piece of information in my pocket that I forgot it from at work. And so these are the things you have to think about, and, just be honest about it, right? That's really what it comes down to is, can I trust you? Are you trustworthy? Are you going to be honest with me? And if you do something wrong in my company, are you going to tell me about it so that we can then fix it and move forward?
So I hope these 6 things are really going to help you avoid making mistakes. It's possible that you heard one of these 6 and you went, "Oh my Lord, I think I've done that." If you've ever done that, you should tell us your story. Right? Send your story over. We'd love to hear about it. Hopefully you can laugh at yourself a little bit over it. But anyway, so hope these 6 really help you.
Yeah, if you want to share your story, go ahead and just email that to support@yourcyberpath.com. As Kip said, we'd love to hear it. And if we get a couple of them, we'll share them on the show as well. With your permission, when you tell us your story, tell us if we can share it on the show or not. We won't share it unless you tell us you can. But we'd love to hear what you have to say about this episode. Please do share it and let us know. With that said, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Your Cyber Path. I hope you found it informative as you start working through and trying to get on your path to your dream cybersecurity career. We'll see you next time.
See you next time.
Thank you for listening to this week's episode of Your Cyber Path. Don't miss an episode. Press the subscribe button now. If you would like to learn more about how to get your dream cybersecurity job, then be sure to visit yourcyberpath.com, where you can access the show notes, search the archive of our top tips and tricks, and discover some fantastic bonus content.